It is an absolute honor and thrill to welcome someone whose words and wisdom have sparked transformation in millions, including me. And how many of you have read his book since, okay, oh, good, that's good. He's read his own book and recorded it for you. Okay, and then how many of you have already shared his book with somebody else? Okay, all right. So from managing a $3.5 billion private equity fund to becoming one of the most sought after voices in business and personal development, Sahil Bloom is more than just a thought leader. He is a force. And he is colliding forces with this force right here. I'm about to tell you, this is gonna be epic, okay? A New York Times bestselling author, dynamic storyteller, and relentless advocate for intentional living, Sahil is redefining what it means to build a life of meaning, impact, and freedom. His message truly changed the way I think about time, energy, relationships, and purpose. And he's here to personally deliver a very powerful interview with me for all of you, and a hands-on workshop for the next 2 hours designed to help you take back control of your life. So get ready to be inspired, challenged, and moved. Please join me in giving a massive high energy welcome to the one and only Sahil Bloom.
Thank you.
He's real human.
Real human.
Welcome to Alt. What do you think of all this pink energy in here, Sahil?
I absolutely love it. You said that I had to answer why I was here. And the first thing, I was standing in the back of the room for the last 15 minutes listening to you. And it is so abundantly clear to me when I stand in rooms like this one that this is where movements are built. It's not online, it's not social media, it's not sitting behind a computer, sharing things, trying to go viral, doing all of those things. It's with real people, because we are the ones that have to go and spread this message, that it is not about chasing the definition of success that you have been handed by the world. Your entire life, by the way, your kids are already being handed that message, whether they know it or not. That the definition of success, of building a wealthy life, is going and making a bunch of money, chasing every single more that the world tells you that you should want. It is up to us to go and spread the message that you can build your life your own way, and that you can build an amazing life that way. My entire life changed when I realized that I did not want to trade lives with any of the people I read books about. My whole life changed as soon as I realized that my own definition of a wealthy life is being able to take my son in the pool at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. That is what my wealthy life looks like. I don't want to make $1 billion. I might want to go and achieve things that allow me to afford a pool, but fundamentally being able to do that is what my wealthy life looks like. And I want you to all leave today. My goal for all of you is for you to have a clear picture of what the life is that you actually want to build. What is the money for? We're all going out and building all of these things, but what is it for? What's the point of everything that we're doing? What is the life that you actually want?
Whoo! Anyone triggered here in a good way? They're like, wait, but what about my handbags?
Handbags can be a part of it, by the way. It's so funny. Like you bring up this idea of enough. I talk about in the book, what does your enough life look like? The first thing that comes to mind for people is that I'm telling you that life has to be Spartan. It has to be bare. You have to be like, well, I have enough technically when I can afford to put food on the table. That's not what this is about. Your enough life can be incredible. I mean, if you really want 3 houses so that you can entertain and bring people together and create these amazing experiences for people you love, I think that's fantastic. And you should then set out a plan and have a set of actions to go and build that life that you want for yourself. But the point is that it's your enough life. It's not what someone else told you. It's not what you've been culturally indoctrinated to believe. And it's certainly not from looking at social media and comparing your life to all of the other people out there.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, right? And how do we go introspective? So I'd love to kind of just kick off with, by asking you a little bit about why you wrote the book. What was the, obviously you had a successful career and, enough. So why the book?
I talk about at the very beginning of the book. So for anyone who's read this one conversation that changed the entire trajectory of my life. I had spent the first 30 years of my life marching down the traditional path to success that everyone tells you should want. I have an Indian mother and a Harvard professor father. And so the combination of those two sort of cultural forces meant that our entire family was very focused on academic success being how we measured ourselves. I have a very high achieving older sister academically. And from a young age, for whatever reason, I started to tell myself this story that I was not very smart. And these stories that we tell ourselves are incredibly powerful as a positive or a negative force. Because humans are incredible storytelling creatures. And there's something called the narrative fallacy, which says that we will look around and find evidence to confirm the story that we already have. So if you tell yourself you are not smart, you are not capable, I guarantee you will look around and find a whole lot of evidence to confirm that belief. And on the flip side, you will ignore every single piece of evidence that would refute it. That was what I did my whole childhood. I told myself I was not smart. No matter how much my parents told me it wasn't true, no matter how much evidence there might have been to suggest it was not true, I convinced myself of that. And it built this insecurity, this void. And when you're young in particular, when you have an internal void, what do? You go around looking for an external solution to an internal problem. As you get older, you start to understand you can't do that. You cannot find external solutions to internal problems. But when you're 20, the easiest way to cover up an insecurity is to go and make money. Go and get pats on the back. Go and do the achievements, the things that people are going to celebrate you for. So I did that. I marched down that path. I took a job that, frankly, in hindsight, was the job that I wanted other people to see me having, not the job that I actually wanted to have. You have to ask yourself that question sometimes in life. When I'm taking a job or when I'm taking on a new opportunity, is this actually an opportunity that I want? Or is it the opportunity that I want other people to see me having? Is it about the LinkedIn post? Am I doing this because I want to say I'm humbled and honored to do this, or because I actually want to go and take this thing on? And I went and chased that definition of success. And from the outside looking in, I was winning the game. I was doing those things that we are told that we're supposed to want to do. And unfortunately, along that journey, I started to see a lot of other areas of my life beginning to show cracks. My relationships, most importantly, with my parents. I was living 3,000 miles away from them. They were getting older. I wasn't seeing them much. My relationship with my sister had ground to a halt. I had created this tension, competitiveness with her that had really put strain on that. And then most importantly, my relationship with my wife, who I had been together with since high school, was really facing strain for the first time, sparked by this 2-year infertility struggle. And I was not present because I was so narrowly focused on this one thing, that money was going to be the path to me feeling good, to feeling successful, to winning at this game. I was drinking 6-7 nights a week. My mental and physical health were in disarray. And it all came to a head in this one conversation. A friend asked how I was doing. And I admitted that it was difficult living so far away from my parents, who were getting older, slowing down. I'd started to notice they weren't going to be around forever. And he asked how old they were, and I said mid-60s. And he asked how often I saw them, and I admitted that it was about once a year at that point. And he just looked at me and said, okay, so you're going to see your parents 15 more times before they die. And I just remember feeling like I had been punched in the gut. The idea that the amount of time you have left with the people that you care about most in the world is that finite and countable, that you can place it on a few hands, just shook me to the core. And in that moment, I realized that my entire definition of success, of what it meant to build a wealthy life, had been incomplete. That I was focusing on the one thing at the expense of everything else. And my wife and I made a change. We, the next day, decided that we had to build our life around the things that truly mattered to us. And I left my job, we sold our house in California, and within 45 days, we had moved to the East Coast to live closer to our families. And in that one decision, there was a really important realization, which is that you are in much more control of your time than you think. We had taken an action and fundamentally created time for the things that we cared about. That number, 15, it's now in the hundreds. I see my parents multiple times a month. They're a huge part of my son, their grandson's life. We had taken an action and reassumed agency over our own life. we had recognized that we were actually capable of taking an action and creating a desired outcome. And everything else in your entire life follows from that one belief.
Yeah, I feel like it's so natural to feel victimless to the circumstances outside of us that, well, yeah, I mean, my husband's here and we've talked, like, we'll get to that. And we've worked really hard on trying to slow down. And I think too, like, some of the things in our life, the timeline isn't so far away. Sometimes it is to go take that leap and do it now. So you talk about in your book, this scoreboard. Why is it so, let's first talk about, like, why do you think the scorecard is broken? Because I think that's the first most important piece.
Peter Drucker is this management theorist who said, what gets measured gets managed. This is the idea that the thing that you can measure ends up being the thing that you focus on, the thing that you optimize around. Humans love measurement. So you don't need to look very far to find an example of this, like with health tracking nowadays. Someone puts on an Oura ring, these like sleep trackers, and all of a sudden they're the most annoying sleep person in the world. They're like, oh no, I can't meet you. I don't want to mess up my sleep score. Their whole life gets like narrowly focused on the one thing. Right? We've all done it. Money is the way that we have historically measured our entire lives. Our entire life worth can be distilled down to a single number. You walk into a room and everyone knows where everyone else stacks up on the basis of this one single thing. And yet, it is not actually the thing that contributes at the end of the day to the good life that we are all trying to build. It is a part of it. Money is an enabler to some of these things, but it is not an end in and of itself. Money is a tool, but not the goal. And so what my call to action was in the book, and more broadly, is that we need to measure for the much bigger picture war, if you will. We're focusing so much on this one battle, but the one battle can be won, and you can still lose the war. I talk about this idea of the Pyrrhic victory, the victory that comes at such a steep cost to the victor that it might as well have been a defeat. The battle won, but the war lost. And we don't have to look that far to find examples of people who have done that. We all know people who have made hundreds of millions of dollars that we pat on the back, we celebrate them, we admire them, we tell them that they won the game, and we ignore the fact that they have 4 ex-wives and 5 kids that don't talk to them. And we pat those people on the back. We tell them that they won the game. And we all have to ask ourselves in our own lives, is that actually a game that I care to win? Because if that's what winning looks like, you can count me out. I don't want to win that game. I want to win the much bigger picture war. And so that starts with redefining what that scoreboard looks like. Because when you measure the right things, you can then go take the right actions. You can make the right decisions that contribute to winning on that new scoreboard.
So is that, first of all, the aha, right? How many of you, I'd love to just see by show of hands, feel like your scoreboard is broken? Yeah. Sahil, what does it mean to be a time billionaire, and why is that concept so important?
This is fundamentally about awareness of time as your most precious asset. Time wealth is the first major section in the book for a reason, because everything stems from that awareness. In my own life, that one story was the story that brought that to life 15 more times before your parents are gone. There is some number, some statistic, something floating out there that will snap you back into reality around this fact. If anyone has young kids in the room, I have a 3-year-old little boy at home. 95% of the time that you have with your children is over by the time they turn 18. 75% is over by the time they turn 12. You have 10 years during which you are your child's favorite person in the world. And then they move on and they have other favorite people. They have best friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, spouses of their own. We are living in the good old days. And yet, on a daily basis, how much of our time are we really wasting? How much time, and by the way, I am 100% guilty of this, scrolling on our phones, comparing our lives to other people, stressing about the past, anxiety about the future, fundamentally disregarding this one most precious asset that we have. I asked the question in the book, would you trade lives with Warren Buffett? He's worth $130 billion. He has access to absolutely anyone in the world. He reads and learns for a living. He flies around on a Boeing business jet. He's got all sorts of houses. It all sounds pretty good. But none of you would trade lives with him. Not a single one of you. Because he's 95 years old. There is no way that you would agree to trade the amount of time that he has left for all of that money. And on the flip side, I guarantee he would do anything to be in your shoes, to have the amount of time that you have left. So you acknowledge, simple math, your time has literally incalculable value. And yet, how much of it are we really wasting? Are we treating ourselves like time billionaires, recognizing that we have billions of seconds left in our life? A billion seconds is 30 years. When you're 20, you have about 2.5 billion seconds left. When you're 50, you have about a billion, billion and a half. Are we treating ourselves that way? Are we taking advantage of that one most precious asset that we really have?
I don't know if you had a chance when you were in the back of the room to hear some of our conversations about balance, right? And so many of us are like, we just, and happen to be in a collective room of women who are building multi-million-dollar companies, right? And we're just, this is a new frontier. And at that point where, that doesn't negate the fact that I still want to live balance, have a balanced life, and have all of these other things, but I also don't not want to continue to fulfill my mission in the world and make that impact. We talk a lot about seasons in business, right? Our business has seasons. Some of you Academy members got a lecture this week about that, right? 'Cause we're all up in arms about the economy right now. But you talk about in the book seasons and balance as it relates to us and our life scorecard. What is that really about, and where are we getting that wrong?
I really am obsessed with this idea of these fundamental tensions in life. There are so many things that dance on this razor's edge. My grandmother, before she passed away, told me, never fear sadness, as it tends to sit right next to love. It's this idea that the most beautiful things in life dance on this razor's edge. You can't expect the good without exposing yourself to the bad. These tensions that exist. And you see them all around you once you start recognizing that idea. And one of those tensions is between presence and ambition. This desire to be present, whether you're a parent or not, the desire to be present with the people that you love, to be present in these moments, to have presence and gratitude and experience the fact that you are living out your dreams in whatever way right now, with the ambition that you have to go and create something, to go and build, to go and grow. I saw so many people raise their hands when you talk about wanting to grow, wanting to create more jobs, build your team, grow your revenue, all of these things. The balance between those two is often what we call work-life balance. We say, oh yeah, well, I want work-life balance. Work-life balance is one of the worst phrases I've ever heard. It is so dumb. I do not know what it means. Because fundamentally, when you say work-life balance, you are saying that the two things are opposed. My work and life are here and here, and if I want one, I have to lose the other, and if I want this, I gotta lose this. That is not how the world works.
Or that they're equally important.
Or that they're equally important, or that they have to be constants at all different times, to your point on seasons. Fundamentally, this is about building a life of work-life harmony. The two are intimately connected. Your work is a huge part of your life, and the people that are on these missions with you, your family, your friends, your business colleagues, all of these people, they are part of the mission that is your work and life harmony. You need your kids, you need your spouse, you need your friends to all know that they are a part of this mission, of the life that you are trying to build. Your work is a part of your life. It is not separate from your life. So the two come together. But that comes down to communication, and it comes down to being willing to let people leave your life if they are not going to be a part of that mission.
Woo!
There are going to be people who are not aligned with the mission that you are on, the life that you are trying to create, the things you are trying to do. They're the people that start getting annoyed at you when you don't have time because you're focused, you're in a season of unbalance around your work. They're the people that start talking shit behind your back when you're pursuing growth, when you're changing, when you're growing. And the reality is that very quickly you realize when you start having a mission mindset around your life, that there are these few missions that you get to choose, you very quickly realize who is on those missions with you and who is not. And there's nothing wrong with those people not being on the mission with you. You need to identify the people who are and let them know those missions. Be very clear about what those missions are. I want my son and my wife to feel like they are just as much a part of this entire thing as anyone else that I'm working with. Because it's all part of the life you are trying to build. The two are not about balance, they are about coming together.
I think so many women in this room can relate. We just are natured creatures that want to have connection. And you start to achieve at a 1% level, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? You start to feel like you almost have to tame yourself or not let your light shine bright enough. And that was one of my questions I had for you, Sahil, was as you've grown and achieved your own new level of success, which you may or may not have even intended for, I would assume you did, but has your inner circle changed? And if so, in what way?
One of the harsh truths of life is that most people don't want you to be successful. This is one of the saddest things that you learn as you start achieving success in any way, is you realize that most people want you to be successful right up to the point where you're kind of infringing on them. And then they want to knock you back down. And so very quickly you have to create a recognition mechanism, a filter for the people who are truly cheering when you are winning, or the people who have the slight hint in their face. You tell them something good and you can see they say the good thing, but you can see the little bit of anger in their eyes. Those are people that you do not need in your life. And frankly, it is a tax on your personal growth and transformation. That mindset has helped me so much because at first I resisted it. It was the finger trap. It's like, I'm going to resist losing these people. I think I've known them for a long time. They must be supporting me. It must have just been a one-off or a situation. But that loss, that period of loneliness, that tightening of your circle, that is a cost of entry, if you will, for the growth and the transformation that you are going through. Because at some point you are changing and your prior environment is not. And there's going to be a time in your life where you literally feel like you are speaking a different language than the people that you previously knew.
Look at these heads nodding.
Yeah. Values, goals, all of these things. You're not going to be speaking the same language as those people. And yet you have not attracted the new people. And that can feel very lonely during that period. You have to recognize that that period of loneliness is the cost of entry to the change. You asked for the growth, so pay the cost of entry with pride. All of these things, the fear of embarrassment, that imposter syndrome that you feel as you are changing, as you're pushing up against your capabilities. All of those things are part of the cost of entry for the growth that you asked for. We all wanted these things, so we have to be willing to embrace the cost of entry. We have to be willing to pay it. It is also the recognition that you are afraid when you go and take on these new things. And the reason you're afraid is because you haven't done it yet, not because you can't do it. Fear comes from inexperience, not incapability. Inexperience is the problem to be solved. And it's only solved through having the courage to take action. You're not one day going to wake up and feel capable to do the thing. That's a decision that you make, that you are going to make yourself capable. That you are going to take action such that then a year from now you're going to look back and say, oh, I was actually very capable of doing that thing. Before I wrote this book, when I wrote the proposal for it, I sent out a one-pager of the proposal to this very well-regarded agent that I'd been introduced to. And within about 10 minutes, I got an email back that just said, I don't really see the merits of the big idea here. I'm going to pass on this. And I paused the whole process. I read the email and I was like, oh, I guess I'm not really cut out to do this. I'm going to fail. People are going to realize I'm not really a writer. I shouldn't write this book. I get, this well-respected person just said, no, she knows better than me.
Yeah.
And I went and had lunch with a mentor a few days later. And we sat down and I told him that I was planning to write this book, but I sent out this thing. The person said no, so I was going to pause it. Maybe I'd come back to it in a year. And he said that at a very important inflection point in his own life, someone gave him a good piece of advice. And so he was going to share it with me. And so I was like leaning in, looking for this very eloquent, thoughtful piece of advice. And he just looked at me and said, nobody cares. And I was like, what? Nobody cares. Whether you win, whether you lose, nobody cares. Nobody is watching you. You are not afraid of failure. You are afraid of what other people will think of you if you fail. But no one is really thinking about you. Everyone is just worried about themselves. Everyone is living their own life, concerned about their own things. So that thing that you have wanted to do, that burning desire that you have, just go do the damn thing. Because whether it works out or it doesn't work out, you are the only person that is going to care at the end of the day. The other people that are talking shit, the other people that are saying things, the other people that are, they are going to move on so quickly. Nobody cares. Those two words I have found more empowering and liberating in my own life, in my own journey, than anything else I've been told all along this path. You are not afraid of failure. You're afraid of what other people will think of you if you fail.
It's like biting, right? No one cares. It's really interesting. I mean, if you take the time to ask yourself, like maybe go like 5 whys deep of like why you're not doing something, that so much of what we do hinges upon what our external perception or what we think of what other people will think or what we should do or what we see. I appreciated your answer to the question about growth and getting to a certain level. And I think like it makes me think how important it is to surround ourselves with other people who are growing themselves. I had a mentor that used to say, Kaylee, people will believe in you until you outgrow their expectation of you. So until they have a certain level of which they see like, oh, I put her in this box. But once you break through that, that's where it starts to make them really uncomfortable, And I think it's important to remember that that is part of the cost of growth. And the same thing for how many of you have been through these moments of like complete team turnover. Like you've built this whole thing and it's like, wow, I've outgrown now my entire team. Like this is actually lots of nods in here, right? And that is because that's true. You are growing, or your business is evolving. You're growing in vision and as a person, and there has to be some sort of an alignment with everybody that's around you in your ecosystem. Sahil, something that like got me in your book, you talk about the dimmer switch, and I love, by the way, like the tools that you have and the practicality around. Like I feel like every concept you've got like a story, an analogy, or a tool, I'm like, yes, I get that, we can, but the dimmer switch for me was like, it's such a practical idea of like how to navigate that quote unquote balance, if you will. Will you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and this all comes from this recognition that the traditional mentality around these different areas of your life has been fundamentally broken, because that has been about these areas of life existing on these on-off switches. That, okay, I'm gonna focus in this season of my life, I'm gonna be focused on building a financial foundation, building my base, my career. So that switch gets turned on and you say, too bad, health, flipped off. Too bad, family and friends, see ya, flipped off. That is what you've been told has to happen. That is the later mindset. I was standing in the back and I heard you talk about later. Later is the most dangerous word in the dictionary. We say over and over again, I'll spend more time with my kids later. I'll focus on my health later. I'll find freedom and purpose later. The sad thing is that later just becomes another word for never. Because those things are not going to exist in the same way later. Your kids are not going to be 5 years old later. Your health will not be there later if you don't invest in it now. Those people will not be there for you later if you don't show up for them now. So either we find ways to design these things into our life right now in some tiny way, or we're just going to end up regretting it later. So the way that we do that is by embracing this idea that life can exist on dimmer switches. You are going to have seasons of life when you are leaning into specific things, where you are trying to build your business. You are in a season of growth or a season of chaos, and you really need to lean into the business to make sure that it's there. You turn that dimmer switch up. But what it means is that the other areas do not get flipped off. You just turn them down low. And low is infinitely better than off, because anything above zero compounds. In your life, anything above zero compounds. Ambitious people have the hardest time getting this through their heads.
Yes.
Over and over and over again, you say things like, I don't have an hour to work out, so I'm just not going to work out today. I don't have 2 hours for deep work, so I'm just going to send emails, I guess. I don't have 30 minutes to call my friend, so I'm not even going to text them. Over and over and over again, we allow optimal to get in the way of beneficial. When the reality is that anything above 0 compounds. The 15-minute walk after lunch is better than doing nothing. The 5-minute phone call to your parents is better than doing nothing. The text that you send to the person when you're thinking about them is better than doing nothing. The 30 minutes of deep work is better than nothing. That is the dimmer switch turned on low. You can do the one tiny action that continues to stack and compound in your life. The recognition being, all of these areas of life are the exact same as your finances. Meaning, we know putting away $50 today is better than nothing because it's going to compound into our future. It's going to be worth a lot more in the future than it is now. The same thing applies to relationships, to health, to all of these areas of life. The tiny investment done on a daily basis is going to stack and compound into your future. It doesn't have to be optimal for it to be beneficial. So turn the dimmer switch on low, design the tiny thing into your life on a daily basis with the recognition that it is much easier to do something every single day than it is to do something most days. I'm going to say that again because that's important. When it comes to consistency, it is much easier to do something every single day than it is to do something most days. We don't think that way, but it's true because every single day becomes part of your mentality. It's who you are, it's your identity. Most days, not so much. Most days, it becomes easier to skip. So do it every single day. Hold your feet to the fire when it comes to doing the action, but give yourself grace when it comes to the amount of the action that you do. A 5-minute walk still counts as moving for the day. Sending the one text to the friend still counts as building your social wealth in some tiny way on that day. Even when we're busy, we're able to do those things. So keep the dimmer switch down low, and you'll continue to make progress in all of these areas of life.
It's so interesting because it just brings me back to think about why, even when we talk about your traditional business model, what I learned in business school, right? Everything is all about the profits, right? And everything is numerically driven. I've been married it'll be 19 years this year. I've been with my husband for 27. Yeah. And the reason why that is afforded an applause is because of what you're saying. We don't have a scorecard. We don't have, a number like, oh, look at our marriage bank account going up and up, right? And it just makes me think about that piece of the social relationships, even my friendships, that's the text messaging. I just started like, okay, every day I'm going to text a friend, hey, thinking of you. No need to reply, or how was that, or whatever. Just to have that connectivity with somebody. And it's like, Kaylee, you don't have to wait until you have the girls' weekend, and which may or may not happen because something's probably going to come up, and then you end up seeing your best friends once a year when you could be checking in and having in text messaging. And I think that's, I know for me, I energize through relationships and having that connection with people, but it's the things that we can't measure, so to speak, So what do you talk to us about that? How do we really measure relationships?
There's so much of what we're saying and winding around, which is back to that whole idea of presence and ambition, of sort of the present and appreciation with the growth and the ambition. And I had an experience a few weeks ago that I just want to share around this because I think it really brings it to life, which was I was working in my office on something for the book launch. I was really focused. And my son, 2.5 years old, came barging in, jumping up and down on the couch, throwing things around, doing typical toddler boy stuff. And I started having this very annoyed train of thought. Why is he doing this? This is so annoying. Doesn't he know I'm trying to work? Shouldn't he just get out of here? All these things. Normal. And I looked at my desk, and I have this little picture of me holding him when he was born. And I snapped myself back to 4 years ago, when my wife and I were in the middle of this 2-year struggle with infertility. I had prayed every single night that we would one day have a healthy child. And here I was in that moment, complaining about the exact thing that I had prayed for. And it was a reminder to me of a very important fact, which is that sometimes in life, the things that you pray for become the things that we complain about, if we let them. If we aren't able to catch ourselves in those moments and recognize that sometimes you are literally living out the prayers of your younger self. The things that you are getting to do today are things that your 90-year-old, 80-year-old self will wish they could go back and do. But we don't think that way. We're constantly focused on the summit of whatever mountain we're chasing. And we never take time to pull ourselves back into the present to recognize the things that we currently have today. And that they were things that our younger self would have dreamed of. The house that we prayed for becomes the house that we complain is too small. The car that we dreamed of becomes the car that we can't wait to turn in. The engagement ring that you lusted after becomes the engagement ring that you want to upgrade. Over and over and over again, we allow ourselves to get pulled into this conditional thinking around our own happiness. We say, when I get X, then I'll be happy. When I make it to this $1 million, or when the business is $10 million, then I'll be happy. Then I will start thriving once I've achieved that thing. Then I will have arrived. This arrival fallacy. And it's a fallacy. We know it's a fallacy, and we continue to do it. So in the weeks ahead, think about that. When you find yourself chasing blindly whatever the thing is out in the future, find that tension point for yourself to pull yourself back into the present. It's okay to chase that thing, to go after it, to have those ambitions, but balance it with a gratitude that exists in the present for the people that are around you, for those moments that we're creating. Don't allow yourself to do what I was doing. You get caught in that negative train of thought.
Yeah, we continue to push our line, right? I remember like vividly the day I filed for my DBA, and I was skipping over like weird, like don't hit your foot on the cracks. I was like I was like loosely flying in the air almost, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have a business, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, that's not good enough. You just have a business. We got to make it $1 million business. We got to make it a $5 million business, and then all of a sudden, I have found myself there, and I've told this story quite a bit, is that, you get to a point where you begin to resent the success that you built for yourself that you once dreamed of, right? And so I guess it makes me kind of just go back to that fundamental question of like, what is enough, right? So what does it mean to have enough? Can you share, you have a story about the investment banker and the fisherman that I think brings this idea to life so beautifully.
It's this story of a investment banker who travels down to this Mexican fishing village. And he's walking along the docks, and he comes across this old rundown fishing boat, the fisherman who's caught a few fish. He asks the fisherman, how long did it take you to catch those fish? The fisherman says, only a little while. The banker says, why didn't you fish for longer? The fisherman says, well, I have everything I need. In the morning, I fish for a little while. Then I go home, I have lunch with my wife. Then I take a nap. Then in the evening, I go into town, drink wine, play music, and laugh with my friends. And the banker's like, you got this all wrong. Here's what you got to do. You got to fish for longer so you can catch more fish. Then you buy a second boat. Then that boat fishes and you get enough money. You buy a third boat, a fourth boat, a fifth boat, a sixth boat. You're going to move to the big city. You take your fishing enterprise public and you're going to make millions. And the fisherman sits back and says, and then what? The banker says, and then what? Then you can retire and move to a small fishing town. You can fish for a little while in the morning, you go home, have lunch with your wife, then take a nap, then in the evening you go into town, drink wine, play music, and laugh with your friends. And this fisherman just smiles and walks off into the distance. That story is commonly interpreted to say that the banker is wrong and the fisherman is right. But I think it's more nuanced than that. It is about the fact that the two have fundamentally different definitions of what it means to have enough. There is nothing wrong if the banker's version of enough is building something huge, chasing his ambition, creating jobs, going and creating some big enterprise. But for him to apply his map of reality to the fisherman's terrain makes no sense, because the fisherman is already living his definition of enough. And yet, that is what we all do when we take out our phones and we look around on social media and allow other people's maps of reality to impact how we feel about our terrain, about the things that we are doing in our life, about the growth that we are pursuing, the things that we are trying to build. That is what we are doing. The fastest way to kill something great is to compare it to something else. We do that nonstop. You could be feeling great about the way that your business is going, the growth that you're achieving, the path that you're on, the vision that you have for it, the life that you're creating. And you open up your phone and you see someone else who has a bigger boat in whatever way, and all of a sudden you feel bad about the thing that you have. We allow other people's maps of reality to impact how we feel about our terrain. You are somewhere on that spectrum from fisherman to banker. Understanding where you are on that spectrum and the life that you actually want to build around it is the most important question that we all have to ask ourselves. We're all somewhere in the shades of gray between the two.
So where does that come from? Is that societal conditioning? I mean, how did we get here?
It is societal. It is all about the fact that money has been the way that we stack ourselves up. And especially when you live in an environment that obsesses over it, it is worse. If you go to a small town, in the South or in the Midwest or anywhere, rural small town, you will not feel the same pressure if you live in that town than if you live in New York City or Los Angeles. Your environment dictates your reality. Everything, your thought patterns, everything you think about the world around you is governed by the people and the environment that you find yourself in. And you can control that. Mm-hmm. You can actually control your environment. As much as we like to say, that's just the way it is, you can control your environment. You can control your digital environment by changing your algorithm and the people you follow. You can control your physical environment by changing the people that you allow into your energy and into your space, by changing your physical geography if you find it not aligned with your values. My wife and I, frankly, struggle with this all the time where we live. We often feel like our values are not aligned with the people that we live around. And it is a legitimate question now of whether we need to make a change in where we live.
I feel sequel coming.
Well, I joked to my wife, I was like, maybe we could move the whole family to Nashville or something. And she was like, well, so you could write a book and then you could say that you went awry again after this and then you ended up moving back again. It's like the same.
We love chaos. Yeah, that's so good. Can you talk, I love this idea. We talk a lot about in building a life first business is setting standards of excellence so that we have a compass. We know what are we living toward? What do we expect people in our business to live up to? What is the essence of how we show up? What is the culture we're building? You talk about this idea of a life raiser. And it's a single statement to provide clarity on your path and decisions during chaos that life inevitably brings. It sounds to me like it's a standard of excellence for yourself. Talk to us about this life raiser and maybe what it is.
Yeah. So I spent time during the book process with this man named Mark Randolph, who is the founder and first CEO of Netflix. And Mark had written this essay several years ago about this ritual that he had, that throughout his entire career, he had this standing rule that at Tuesdays at 5 p.m., he would leave work to go have a date night with his wife. And when we spoke, he talked to me about the fact that the thing that he was most proud of from his entire career was not the companies that he built, it was not the enterprise value that he created, the money that he made, any of these things. It was about the fact that he had done that while still remaining married to the same woman, and as far as he knows, having kids who still like and respect him. His words, not mine. That is a really interesting concept and idea when I reflected on it, because the dinner and the date and the rule really had nothing to do with any one date or really anything about the date or the time or any of that. It was all about the identity that it implied, about how his ideal self shows up in the world, that he is the type of person who never misses a 5 p.m. dinner with his wife, and what that creates as far as ripples out into the world, what it implies to everyone around him, to his family, to his colleagues, to all of those who see him doing that. We can all have our own version of that 5 p.m. dinner statement. There is something, some identity-defining, ripple-creating statement for your own life that governs how your ideal self does show up in the world during this present season. So mine is that I will coach my son's sports teams. He's 2.5. He doesn't have any sports teams yet. And you could replace sports teams with drama classes or dance or whatever he's into. I'm going to be there to support him. That is what it means to me. And that means certain things about what I will take on, what I will say no to, how I will handle different opportunities, different chaos. I can ask myself, what would the type of person who coaches his son's sports teams do in this situation? It provides clarity through chaos. So during those moments in your life where you find yourself blinded by whatever storm, like a hiker during a blizzard, can't see your way to the other side, this idea of the ideal self, how they show up in the world, what they prioritize, you can turn to that to answer and to face whatever it is has come into your life.
Watch out for those baseball dads out there. What about the concept of anti-goals? Is that the opposite of that?
So anti-goals stem from this quote from Charlie Munger, the late investor, who said, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." And that idea, unfortunately he did die, so eventually he went there. That idea of knowing what is going to derail you on your journey to achieve your goals, that is what anti-goals are about. Anti-goals are saying that we all know the goal. It's the summit of the mountain. It's the thing that we're trying to go achieve during this present season, during this year, during this quarter, whatever. We all know to set goals. Anti-goals are the things that we are not willing to sacrifice in achieving those goals. And that is just as important as knowing what you're trying to achieve. Because otherwise, if you do not have those guardrails, you may find that you reach the summit, but you got frostbite and lost your leg along the way. And that is not really a win. That is the Pyrrhic victory that we talked about at the beginning. That is making the $1 billion, but having 5 kids that don't like you or talk to you. And if that is not what you want, if that is not the life you are trying to build, you need to know that as you set these goals. So your goal for the year may be to grow your business to $10 million. Your anti-goal might be spending 300 nights out of that year away from your family because you were going so crazy chasing business deals that you weren't able to be present at all. You want to achieve the goal, but not if it means this anti-goal becoming real. It creates the boundary around this so that you can win the battle and the much bigger picture war that you are chasing.
Okay, I have some personal questions for you.
Oh boy.
So I've got like a decade on you in life, right? And so I'm like, how did someone at such a young, ripe age of 33 have so much wisdom, number one, and to have the courage and I guess insights and drive to create a movement like this? Do you think this is new information, or do you think that you're packaging it up and delivering it in a different way?
I don't really think there's anything new in the world. I basically think that these human questions are universal, and we've been asking them since humans existed. What is meaning? What is purpose? What is the point of all this? What is the life that we're trying to live? What does a good life look like? All of these things have been universal questions. And so what I would say in general, when it comes to wisdom, first off, I don't think wisdom is about answers. I think wisdom is about asking questions. And anyone can ask a question. It just requires you to actually confront the pain of asking the questions that you are avoiding.
Oh.
The answers that you seek in life are found in the questions that you avoid. Think about that. The questions that we avoid. Scraping away at the comfort of just hiding from those things, that is where we find the answers that are actually going to lead to the growth that we want, to the outcomes that we want. That is what wisdom is about. It's not about answers. The entire category of self-help books has been about people forcing answers down your throat. Here's the one way that you can live your life. Here's the only way that you can make money. Here's the only way that you can be healthy. Whatever the answer is, here it is. This book and this entire movement is more about asking questions than any answers. I don't have the answers for any of you in this room. No one else in the room has the answers for your life. You already have them within you. You just haven't asked the right questions yet to uncover and act on them. You just haven't sat with the questions long enough to come to them. And so when I think about creating that movement, sharing that, I think that I can be a catalyst for it, but that ultimately it has to be about other people taking that and running with it. Which brings me back to why I get so excited to be in rooms like this, because I see around me 100 people who are excited to go and spread a message and a movement in the way that they live. Not in being preachy about here's the exact answer, but in how you actually embody these things out in the world. So when I go and live my own life, I would never want someone to say about me. My anti-goal for my entire life is for someone to say, oh yeah, he says nice things, but he actually cheats on his wife, and he's a jerk, and his kid doesn't like him, and he's unhealthy, he's overweight. So he writes about all these things. These things sound good, but he doesn't live by any of this stuff. That is like my number one anti-goal for life. I know influencers, I know people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the saddest thing in the world. You have to live by the things that you want to see in the world. If you are trying to create you have to be that movement. Mm-hmm. You have to actually go and live by that. And so when I get excited, it's because I see people who are actually going out and taking action against these things, living by, embodying these principles. And when we hope to teach people anything, you can't teach your kids anything. You just have to embody the things that you want them to learn. It's the exact same for any of this stuff. If we want our employees, our colleagues, our teams to internalize and live by this, then we have to live by it.
Amen.
If I want my son to treat my wife like a queen, I better damn well treat my wife like a queen. If I want my son to understand the value of delayed gratification, he better see me working hard on things to achieve an outcome later. He better see me paying the cost of entry, paying rent every single day. We cannot teach people anything. We just have to embody the things that we want them to learn.
Why are we avoiding those conversations? Or not asking those questions of ourselves, maybe a better way to say that.
Because it's so much easier in life to live blissfully ignorant. It is, it's like the Matrix, the red pill, blue pill thing. It's much easier to go with the status quo in life. All of your lives would be, actually, I'll just tell you this right now. The path that you were on is much harder than what it could be. And I'm sure by this point you probably all know that. The things that you are doing, wrestling with these tensions, building these businesses, chasing these, way harder than your life has to be. But it turns out that the hard things actually create a whole lot of happiness and meaning in the long run. Doing it the hard way is actually the right way. Because the hard things are what create the texture of life. There is actually merit in doing the hard things. You earn your long-term freedom by sacrificing short-term freedom. People don't realize that. They think about the word freedom. I talk about freedom in the time wealth section. Say like, well, freedom is me being able to just eat all the ice cream I want right now, or like, just sit around and not work today and do all these things. That's freedom. I totally agree. That is short-term freedom. This is about sacrificing short-term freedom to earn long-term freedom. And that long-term freedom is the life that you are building. That is the relationships, that is the health, that is the business, all of those things. And the cost of entry to doing that is the hard stuff now. And you can enjoy the hard stuff. If you do it long enough, you find somewhere along the way that you love that struggle. That you love being in a room with people that are pushing you to grow, not just telling you that you're great the way you are. You are great the way you are in some ways, but you also have a lot of ways to improve. And being around people that will tell you that will hold you to account on that have high expectations for you, but also high support, that will be there for you to support you to go and reach those expectations. That is the most amazing. I can't imagine a more joy-filled life than being surrounded by people like that, than being in rooms like this, than getting to do this and call it work. I mean, it is unbelievable. We are so blessed to be able to do things like this.
Mm-hmm. This is the gift. So, there are quite a few women in here who would love to write a book and for it to become a national bestseller. I mean, just saying. Have you written other books? Question number one. Maybe let's start there.
No, this was my first book. I did just sign my second book deal on the back of it, which was great. Thank you. This was my first book, and if you have an interest in writing a book, I'm more than happy to help however I can, provide guidance, support, think through agents, publishing, how you do it, all of those things. I obviously just went through it and have a lot of perspectives on what is worth investing in versus not investing in when it comes to books. But you should write the book. If you have something, I mean, it goes back to the thing, nobody cares. If you have a story that you want to tell, if you have something that you want to share with the world, go share it. Write the thing. We've never lived in a more permissionless environment. When I first started writing, I mean, this is just a few years ago. I was working in finance. It's like 2020. I started writing on Twitter. It started growing. I started this newsletter in 2021. And I got a bunch of like messages from people, sort of like detracting, both from people that I knew, like people that I thought were my friends, and from random people saying like, what gives you the right? Like, what is your credential? And it always struck me as really funny, this like the credential brigade. Like you need a PhD to think about life. And it's so funny because what I realized is that we actually live in a completely permissionless, credential-less world. My credential is the fact that a lot of people have found value in the things that I share.
Absolutely.
And if they don't, then they will no longer listen to me or read my stuff, and then I will no longer have permission to write these things. And that is just the reality. We live in a market. You get to create your own credential. You get to create your own permission to do these things. We wait so much in life for someone else to come tap us in. It's the thing. We stand on the sidelines. Oh, like me with the agent rejecting me. Oh, I'm just going to wait for some agent to come tap me in. You get to tap yourself in on any of these things. If you want to write a book, go write a book. If you want to go build a brand around X, Y, or Z, go do it. You can go and do any of these things as long as you were willing to show up and do it every single day. I wrote 500,000 words over the past 3 years on, my newsletter, social media, all of these things. People ask about what the hack is. People say you got lucky. You are 1 year of focus away from other people saying you got lucky.
Can you say that again?
You are 1 year of focus away from other people saying you got lucky. Lucky is the thing that we say when we can't explain someone else's success.
Oh, gosh, that's so good.
So someone else does a thing, we look at it, we don't get it, we say, oh, they got lucky. But you're the one that knows the 500,000 words that you wrote over the last year. You're the one that knows the energy, the waking up at 4 a.m. before your kids were awake so that you could still have breakfast with them. You're the only one that knows those things. So wear that lucky as a badge of honor.
Okay, because I'm like, personally, the resistance, it's this weird thing that's in your head that's like, yeah, I'll sit and I have to sacrifice a lot of time and investment in writing the book, and then what if no one reads it?
This goes back to the nobody cares. If nobody reads it, nobody saw it, so it's not that embarrassing. And then you have a story. Yeah, no matter what, you are going to find something bad about it. I get annoyed because I see, when I walk through an airport now and I see a bookstore that doesn't have my book, it makes me annoyed. Like 6 months ago, I dreamed of just seeing my book in any airport, in anyone's hands. And now I'm like annoyed. I go to a bookstore, I'm like sending a picture to why isn't it here? This is ridiculous. Look at all these bad books.
You just gotta follow these women around.
I want to walk around with books in my pocket so I can go put books on shelves. I'm like, this is so annoying. Why isn't it here? So no matter what, you are going to find something bad about the situation. But the point, this applies to social media for sure. If you put out a post and it gets 0 likes or it gets 1 like, no one saw the post. That's the way the algorithms work. Literally no one saw it. So it's not like people saw it, were like, ooh, that's cringe, that's embarrassing, this person's a loser, now I'm not going to like it. No one saw it. The world moves on. And by the way, sometimes the things that get the fewest likes actually have the highest quality of people that appreciated them. One of the most asymmetric things that has happened in my life came from a post that I put out that I thought about deleting because of how little engagement it got. And then 6 months later, I had dinner with this person who's this billionaire founder. And he told me that the first time he came across my stuff was he read this one post and he thought it was really interesting. And so then he had reached out. And it was literally something that I thought about deleting. And so just imagine, there are things that you put out there into the world. If you are proud of them, be proud of them and put them out into the world, because you never know. Your luck surface area just expands from sharing these things into the world.
Thank you. I love that. Okay, a couple more questions from the audience here. So one was, does Sahil think suffering and sacrifice are inherently necessary on the journey of achieving all 5 areas of wealth?
Depends on your definition of suffering and sacrifice. I do not believe it is possible to achieve the things you want in life without paying certain costs of entry to achieve them. I post this occasionally, that every single thing you want in life is on the other side of something that sucks. It could be 100 hard workouts. It could be 100 hard conversations to build the relationship you want. It could be 100 hours of focused work to build the business you want. But everything is on the other side of something hard. And a lot of people that detract from that statement will interpret it as saying that your whole life has to feel like a grind. I think that the goal in life is to find the suck that you actually kind of enjoy. It's like we're all sitting here, right? You work hard on your businesses. There's times when that's a real grind, but sometimes you're sitting there grinding and you just kind of like realize you're really leaning forward. Like your eyes are kind of lighting up around the thing. You're like, I'm really in it right now. This is it. I'm doing the thing. And that is the kind of suck that we really want to embrace. That's the stuff where you are actually building towards that future life. That is paying the cost of entry. So does it have to be a grind forever? No. Sometimes you unlock and you find that you really enjoy certain struggle. And that is the struggle that creates the best outcomes. Those are the times when you're leaning into your energy. It might be hard, it might be challenging, but it's fruitful. It actually makes you feel good after you do it. It's like the beneficial struggle where you like get in the cold plunge and it really sucks, yes. But you get out and you're like, wow, I'm a badass. I can go do this thing, whatever the thing is in life. That is what we really want to lean into and find.
I love that. I just had the visual of like, what kind of fruit grows from this tree? Like what comes from the suck? Yeah. Like what's, like what kind of like, is it good fruit or sour fruit?
There's this story of, the emperor moth is like this little bug. It grows, in its little cocoon, and then it comes out when it starts flying. And there's a story that was written of a man came across one of the cocoons, and it was starting to crack, and the moth was really struggling to get out of the cocoon. And the man felt bad. They're huge, these moths. The man really felt bad, so he came over and he had the cocoon and he started breaking it open to help the moth get out. And he broke it open, the moth came out, its wings, and it couldn't fly. And it died shortly thereafter. And what the man found out was that it turns out that part of the entire process of coming out of the cocoon is that the struggle of cracking through and actually breaking through drains the fluid out of the wings that enables the moth to actually fly. And without that painful struggle of coming out, the moth is actually incapacitated. It's not able to go and do that. And so by helping it, by actually trying to do the nice thing and crack this thing open, he had actually broken the moth's life in some way. That is obviously a metaphor for our relationships, for children, but it's also a metaphor for our own journey. And sometimes when you are in that painful struggle, you have to recognize that this is part of you getting to the other side, whatever your wings are that are getting drained.
That's so beautiful. I think of the finger chop again, like sometimes just sitting in the ick, and like but it's for something, right?
Nothing bad ever came from working hard on things that you care about.
True.
My grandfather used to say that to me. It was like, my grandfather was an incredibly, incredibly wise man. And he always used to say that nothing bad ever comes from working hard on things that you care about. That even if it doesn't work out, nothing bad comes from it, fundamentally. Something else good will come from it. There's some chain of events, something that will happen. And I have found that to be true. He also, one other line that I just absolutely love from him I have to share is that he said, "You'll achieve much more by being consistently reliable than by being occasionally extraordinary." That has always resonated with me. I have it up on my wall in my room. Just showing up every single day, it is very hard to bet against the person who just keeps showing up.
Good segue for this question, which is, did you ever speak to that agent that turned down your one sheet since your book was published?
This is slightly embarrassing. I am, one of my worst attributes, or maybe, I don't know, I'll just take it. It's part of who I am. I am very petty. So a few weeks later, after she had rejected it, I'm petty on several occasions in this case. After she had rejected it, I had this lunch with this mentor, and I sent the book to another agent after that lunch. And the other agent hops on this Zoom call and says, look, I'm going to be honest with you. And my heart kind of sank. Then she said, I absolutely love it. And I ended up working with that agent. And a few weeks later, I had signed a 7-figure book deal for this book that they said was not, that this other agent had said was not a big idea. And that month was the London Book Fair, which is this big book sales event where all the agents and all the publishers go to meet. And for whatever reason, the papers around that London Book Fair were outdated. And so it said that my book was still being marketed to people, and it had it in there as one of the books being marketed. And the agent that had rejected me sent me an email saying, I see your book is being marketed at the London Book Fair. Wishing you all the best with it. I'm sorry that we weren't able to work on it together. She was kind of sticking it to me a little bit. And I replied, I was sitting next to my wife and I was like, I just have to do this. and I replied to the email and said, oh, sorry, that's outdated. I actually already signed a 7-figure book deal for that exact book. And just sent it off. And fast forward 3 years, and when the book came out and it got reprinted with the New York Times bestseller tag on the front, I mailed her a copy. Yeah. So, not my proudest moment, but kind of proud.
That's so good. So, can you tell us about this next book?
There's no concept yet. It's going to roughly be around this concept of creating your own luck. I write and talk about the idea of luck surface area a lot, that you can actually take actions to expand your luck surface area in the world. And I want to explore that in a lot more depth.
I love that. Okay, my last question, because it's my time with you. You have been on this book tour and had interviews with all kinds of different people. Who has been your favorite interviewer?
Ooh, that's a good question. I just on Monday did an interview with Hoda, the former Today Show host. She was amazing. She was very a real pro. You could tell she'd been on TV for 20 years. I also really enjoyed Ed Milet. I don't know if anyone knows.
We all know Ed Milet.
Ed, yeah, that's coming out I think next week maybe. That was a fun one. I'm trying to think who else.
What was it like with Rich Roll?
Oh, he's amazing.
Because to keep up with him, I was like, damn. I got intimidated. Then I was like, I can't interview.
It's an intimidating environment. The whole I don't know if anyone's seen the videos of his studio.
Do you all know who Rich Roll is? If you want to learn how to be the most just polished and eloquent communicator ever.
He's incredible.
Incredible.
He's an example of someone who is just a master at their craft. He has not chased all of the different, this is probably a lesson for all of us. He has not chased all of the different trends and all of the different things that have happened in the world of podcasting. He has just stayed in his lane of mastering his craft. He read the entire book before the interview. He had real thoughtful, detailed questions versus taking the research sheet that someone creates for him and running with it. And it shows over long periods of time when someone does that. He was really incredible.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Okay, so at this point, how amazing, Sahil, by the way. This has been so incredible.